Hey everybody, how we doing out there? Doc and Mav with you, ReadySetCrypto. Today is Wednesday the 29th of June as we bring a miserable second quarter almost to a close here in 2022. Welcome aboard everybody. We are, like I said, we are Doc and Mav of ReadySetCrypto. We'll be here for about the next half hour to opine a little bit on the state of the market, as well as take your request in terms of what coin pairs you'd like to see a little bit of TA on. So if you could do us a favor as you check in today, let us know where you're coming in from. Go ahead and give the thumbs up button a smash. Let everybody know that we got started, and we'll get going here in just a minute. Welcome aboard, everybody.
How we doing out there, Doc?
All right, we got David coming in from Mexico. Oh, not too bad. This is, lovely summer so far.
Yeah. Hopefully it we see something pop in the market soon, but is what it is.
We've just sort of figured out that Mav is impregnable. He's impervious to any kind of virus that's going on. He's been around more people that have COVID lately, and he's got the magic shield up. So
yep.
All right, we got Daryl coming in from South Florida. Folks, let us know where you're coming in from today. We'll get started here briefly. We have Nicholas coming in from Newport Beach. Mav, I bet you've been there before. All right, we got Ian coming in from Sydney, Australia. All right, we have Buckhorn from Arkansas and Kaza from Ireland. Fantastic. Good to see. We've got just about all the continents represented here today. Fantastic. This is the time. This is the time of market where we just have to be patient because opportunity is right around the corner. And Mav, I'm not sure what you got for the folks today. I would imagine it's something similar to that. Ian from Belfast, fantastic. Thank you, Ian, for checking in here today. But we have been through so many of these things now, and they all have kind of a very similar MO behind them. And you have to understand that it's the market's job to separate the greatest number of people from their capital. And this is what's going on right now. We have that going on. So you're going to be surrounded by FUD, all kinds of, negative news, everything like that. But if you've got a strong hand, this is where you can actually do quite well in these markets. Hey, we got Brooklyn, New York coming in. All right. So yeah, to that point, and maybe this is a good segue for Mav for you to go ahead and get going here. So folks, as you check in, let us know where you're coming in from. Hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to hit those. Let me know what kind of coins you guys want to look at, and we'll see if there's any opportunity out there today in the TA world. Go get them, Mav.
Yeah, so I think you teed it up quite well. I love the quote that everything feels unprecedented when you haven't engaged with history. And I don't think there's a better representation of that in this chart. This is all I'm going to talk about today. So it should be a very brief, but hopefully very, call it very relevant lesson here, because I think people trying to call the bottom, people trying to say what is exactly going to happen, et cetera, that's cool. But I think when we're talking about a reversal, I don't think it will happen at a specific price. I think it happens at specific market conditions. And to help kind of understand that and maybe give better context of this chart, which again is very simple by design, but like when we look back at 2013 or 2017, right at the end of those years, we had like peak euphoria. Bitcoin went above 1K for the first time, then 10K in 2017 for the first time. Great stuff. And that was very quickly followed up by like absolute crushing pullback. I don't know if anyone was around in the Bitcoin space back in 2013, 2014, but this was the Mt. Gox hack. Mt. Gox was the world's largest exchange at the time. It processed about like 70 to 80% of the daily Bitcoin volume. By comparison, Binance is the world's largest exchange today. They only do about, say, 7% of Bitcoin's total volume per day. So very big deal. And when they were hacked and 7% of all Bitcoins in existence were stolen, this was like an existential crisis. And same thing here, where following 2017 into 2018, it was just this like, we went from peak euphoria to peak depression, and people just doubting that there's anything to do with crypto. Like, oh, it was all a scam. It's dead. All this kind of stuff. This is the sort of 4-year cycle that we see over and over again with Bitcoin, especially, where we start this off with an all-time high, that being 2013, 2017, and most recently in 2021, where Bitcoin goes up, and it's great, it's exciting, and then immediately afterwards, the second year, it's a crash. Those being 2018, 2014, and most recently now 2022. This is the year where people just get extremely, like Doc said, it's just this compounding interest, which is the eighth wonder of the world for a reason. It's because fear begets fear. People's need to like preserve their most fundamental of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like the shelter, the food, the sense of security. All that comes precedent before the need to like go into digital assets or anything like that. People are circling the wagons, if you will. So this just keeps perpetuating. And this is why you go out there, you don't see anybody really talking about what's coming after the bear. What's next for crypto? What's going to bring it back? No, it's all about, well, inflation is this, and there's all these other macro factors, and Bitcoin and crypto, they're just, they're just noise. It was all a scam all along. And here we are again. We're repeating the same cycle. This is the crash year, just like we saw in 2014, just like we saw in 2018. What comes after that, the next year, that being 2023, 2019, 16, 15. Oh my gosh, I'm getting my years all mixed up here. That's the lull year. That's the sideways year. That's the year where it just crushes out anybody who's still a tourist, still hanging around, waiting for things to go back up. That's generally when we see the low for Bitcoin, is when there's complete and utter, just call it, I don't know, indifference, where this is the crypto winter in February, if you will, at least if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, where it's just, this is where things are the most boring, the most, people have given up even saying that crypto is dead. They've just moved on, and importantly, this is when people are building stuff, because there's no more of this noise, hype, all this kind of nonsense. And I think this is really important for where we are right now, because there's a lot of recency bias going back to 2020. That is where this model kind of get a little bit mixed up, because the Fed basically came in and said, hey, we're going to print a bunch of money, and we're going to make sure that there's a backstop for the markets. That went on for the last 2 years. And now the free money faucet has been turned off. This, where we thought we were going to see a market crash in March of 2020, obviously that didn't happen. And that was in large part because of the Fed's intervention. So investors, VCs out there, they're still kind of playing to this logic of like, oh, it's going to turn around any day now. The reversal is going to happen, I believe, because, that's what happened a couple of years ago. But we're in a very different type of environment right now. There's a lot of different catalysts going on here. There's a lot more macro factors at play. If you want to just look at like the macro factors, what would turn the markets around right now? I think it's primarily three things. Those being, first off, if we see a ceasefire or a outright like peace treaty between Russia and Ukraine, especially if it's that peace treaty is signed as an NFT, that would definitely help with things. It would also be the case if we saw an ease of the lockdowns, the China's supply chain crisis, all that kind of stuff. That is another thing that would help alleviate some of this supply chain pressure. You know, clearly, like it's just there's a lot of chaos out there with the overall global economic system. There's a lot of the gears aren't turning in the right way. The ships aren't sailing enough. Just because the Fed is raising interest rates, trying to tackle inflation, that doesn't make ships go faster. That doesn't make oil get pumped out of the ground faster, et cetera. And that's the third factor, is seeing oil come down would be a big piece of that. And importantly, all three of those factors, the ceasefire in Russia, oil coming down, and some alleviation of the supply chain issues, those all have to happen at the same time. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of this, is it getting started or not kind of a cycle. And that's very indicative of like the sideways year that I've been talking about. So the fourth and final year in where we see this cycle repeat itself, where we'll likely see, just based off both macro conditions as well as what's going on in the crypto space, where we see Bitcoin crypto turnaround. The title of today's stream is like, when is the best time to be getting into Bitcoin? Just based off of this cycle, it's during the halving year. It's during the time where we see, like the halving event usually plays out, a 4-year cycle. So the next one's going to be in 2024. And that reduces the supply schedule of Bitcoin, which it doesn't change the markets too much in the moment. We saw this back in 2020 where like everybody knows when it's coming. It's priced into the markets. It's not until about 6 to 12 to 18 months down the road when the Bitcoin miner network and just a lot of the different other sort of economic factors at play start to rebalance themselves. The system corrects itself. It gets rid of those miners that are operating inefficiently or, with very expensive electricity. The system sort of reboots. And then when we get to around where 2025 is, that's when we see the correct conditions, at least based historically in the crypto markets, for a return to all-time high, a return to called a reversal or whatever. That's where we see the full system reboot that needs to go down. So anyone who's claiming that we're going to see like, a bounce off of 10K or 15K or 20K or whatever, that the reversal is going to start right here, cool. I wish I had your crystal ball, but like, I think based off what we've seen before, we're probably going to see a continuation, at least for this year, of a down cycle, because just looking historically, just looking at what the average length of these cycles, what happens historically, it's about 12 months from peak to bottom that we see a down trend, at least as it relates to Bitcoin, where we had a peak in November of 2021. That's when it hit its all-time high. So just going off the historical data, we should see, call it a bottom, but at least kind of like where it starts to trend sideways around November of this year, leading into 2023, where things, again, are going to go sideways, but hopefully the macro starts to improve. We start to at least address some of the bigger issues, both with crypto as well as sort of our macro global environment. But again, we're heading into unprecedented territory here. This is a nice little chart, and it's a good example of sort of the cyclical nature of the Bitcoin and crypto markets. But it's not law. Like, this is not something to say like, oh, this is exactly how it's going to happen, because no, as Doc points out, like the market's here to exist, separate the greatest number of people from their capital. And the best way it does that is by getting a lot of people believing one thing and for a different thing to happen. And that could definitely happen because we've never seen Bitcoin. We've never seen crypto going into a recession. We've never seen, Bitcoin dealing with the Fed basically talking about their balance sheet and things like that. We've never seen an environment where they're taking M2 money supply out of the system. Bitcoin's always existed in an environment where there's just more being added. For the first time, if you go to the M2 money supply St. Louis Fed, you can see it's starting to trend down. And that's something very significant. That's going to play into all the things that we're dealing with in this time and age. But like, it's definitely something we have to take into account as we're looking for what's going to happen next, where the markets are going, and ideally when we start to see things turn around. So to summarize, 2022 is likely going to be the year of the crash. 2023 is likely a year of sideways, mild improvements, but also frustration. And it's usually around, hopefully we see about 2024, that things will start to improve. We'll start to see the halving start to pick up some steam. Ethereum is also going through its merge and other big improvements. The crypto industry is just kind of figuring itself out, and it's going to mature during this time. It's going to build, it's going to look to solve some of the issues that we're dealing with right now. And hopefully by the time we see things turn around, the crypto market's going to be in a very, very good position because let's not kid ourselves. The end game here is central bankers are going to have to reverse, if they start acting more dovish, that'll be a good sign, at least for the interim. But they're going to have to, reverse their policies. That's the real reversal, I would say. They're going to have to start printing again because there's unimaginable inflation going on right now. And they're grasping at the air, trying to fix the problems that they've created. That's inevitable as far as I see it. They can't print their way out of the solution or the problem. It's not a solution to the problem, but it's basically the only card they've got left. So it's still very much the case that Bitcoin is still young, crypto is still maturing, and it's outpacing the growth of even the early internet. So more and more people are understanding it, more and more people are interacting with it every year. And again, it's the first time that Bitcoin and crypto are going through a recession. But remember that the last time we went through a recession, that was the conditions that gave birth to Bitcoin, that gave birth to this entire crypto industry and frame of thinking. So very important that we see this for what it is, that it's not some little blip down and then we're going to reverse back up. No, we have some very big fundamental things to address and go through, but I think it's for the best. I think this is the time we see a real crypto industry start to really rise from the ashes. And it's going to be an exciting thing to be a part of. This is the build or bear market more than the bear market, as far as I'm concerned. But until we see things turn around, obviously there's going to be some pain. So I would say for at least the next 36 months or so, try to have enough cash on hand to make it through that and have enough faith to survive the winter without wavering or chasing new non-crypto directions. I think crypto will come back bigger than ever. And we just have to let this play out. And maybe that's a really good way to segue into Doc, looking at the markets. What are you seeing? Do you agree with anything I was saying there, or do you have a different opinion? I'd love to hear it.
Well, everybody just wants to know, like, when is this going to be over? And the easiest way to answer that is it's not going to be when things feel better. The bottom will actually come in when nobody wants to buy it, right? So you've all been part of this thing before, where it's like the market's going higher and higher and higher, and you buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, and that works. Well, as it goes down on the backside of the market, people start buying the dip, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, it's going lower here, and all of a sudden you're going further and further underwater. And so eventually what happens is, as you try to catch the falling knife to the downside, people say, well, the hell with that. I'm not buying the next dip. You can go buy that next dip. I'm not going to buy it. And what will happen is when the true bottom actually comes in, and I've been through a few of these before, it feels absolutely horrible at the very bottom of this. It feels like, the sun's not going to come up tomorrow. Nobody wants to buy. Nobody will buy. And then all of a sudden it lifts off. And this is what we call the disbelief phase of any kind of market cycle. The disbelief phase occurs when nobody's on board. It's like a roller coaster going up and there's nobody in any of the cars. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And then pretty soon people start to chase it. They start to understand as we get into the acceptance phase. But let's take a quick look here over at our charts. Let me make sure I got this. This is my North Star. This is the same chart that Mav was showing you before. This is a monthly chart with a log scale on it. And so it still looks okay. We have not violated any of the lows. The trend is still hanging in there. Now, what I'd like to see, I wanted to see the swing test hold up. So far, it's holding up, but I don't think it's going to hold up for a lot longer. When you knock at the door, eventually it's going to, if you're jumping on the floor of your house, eventually you'll break through the floor. And we'll probably end up finding some support somewhere down in here around the time that most people will give up on this. So this is the other thing that we noticed is that starting in 2020, there's a huge amount of correlation between the crypto industry and the NASDAQ or tech stocks, because it's not been an inflation hedge, quite honestly. So right now, the investors with the big I, right now I'm saying, are treating crypto as another risk asset. And so it's got to differentiate itself because there's a lot of other assets that are in the same space. Okay, so let's go into some of these ones that you guys have put out there for request. All right, let's get off the log scale. We're just going to go down to a standard chart. That's BTC. Range contraction goes to range expansion, goes to range contraction again. The daily chart's ready to move, but the weekly chart is not ready yet. So this actually may bounce up. So in the near term, what I want you guys to do is look for swings. Look for swings to the upside, but have a defined target. Have a defined target that you will sell out at. To me, 28. If we're able to get a run up to 28, you sell into 28 because it's more than likely heading down from there. So if you can move it, if you can get onto something above 22, take it off at 28. And pretty much it's going to be what I will say just about anything. So one of the coins that we were looking at in the Omnia service was Leo versus the US dollar. So Leo. And we went into Leo at 550, and I said, sell at 6, sell at 6. And there you go. It's banging its head against 6, and it's giving people all kinds of opportunity. Now, could it go higher than there? Yeah, maybe. But you don't care. Your job right now is just grab little chunks of value. And I'm not going to really tell people to go short on this market. I think it's a really difficult thing to do. You got to have margin. You got to have the right type of account. So I'd rather look for assets that are heading higher in price. Some of the other ones that we're looking at, like Uniswap, I think somebody was asking me for Uniswap earlier. This one has potential to get somewhere at 6. And we've also looked at, I think somebody was looking for Polygon. Here's Polygon. And Polygon would be a buy at about 70 cents at this point. So it's flagging out right now, but if it can't get anywhere, 70 cents would be my entry on this thing at good volume. Okay, let's go into what you guys are looking for. So Woo versus Tether. Let's take a look at Woo versus Tether. So this one has not been around for a whole long time. It's still in a pretty nasty downtrend. What I would look for is I would look for it to break this trend line and trade above 25 cents. So trading above 25 cents would put in a higher low, higher high combination. So just look for a break above 25 cents. I would sell it probably into 45. Former support becomes new resistance from below. So if you get into it at 25, sell it at 45. Take your profits in this market. Don't think that you're getting the actual bottom. Doesn't matter if you do. You can always get back on board later on. It's all about risk management. Okay, so that's Woo. Let's look at Thorchain. All right. Rune versus Tether. Let's see how this one's doing. Yeah, we had a conservative buy over here. We did have an aggressive buy on this. This worked for a little while back in the spring. Okay, right now I would say aggressive buy would be somewhere over here on Thorchain. So right now we have a pretty nasty downtrend in play. Descending patterns break to the upside. Descending patterns break to the upside. I would consider Thorchain at about 3. about 3. That would be an aggressive buy. And I would sell probably into 6. 3 to 6 if it's able to come up to here, because probably it's going to head back down again in this type of market. So you can catch these ones if they set up right, because everybody's bearish down here, right? So you can take advantage of a quick short squeeze to the upside. Another one that was requested was the mighty Dogecoin. Okay, so mighty Dogecoin, we're sitting at 8 cents with a potential buy, because this would break this descending pattern. Break to the upside would put in a higher low, higher high combination. This one I would sell out at 12. If you're in at 8 cents, I would be out at 12 on Dogecoin. Again, this is a trading environment. This is not a try to pick the bottom environment. Okay, let's see. Yeah, disbelief is probably not soon. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Sand. Let's try sand. See what this one is doing. The sandbox. All right. So looking at some of the meta. And this one I would say is about 1.5 for an entry. On 1.5, this would break the descending pattern. This would drive into a new relative high. I would be out of this one probably 250 to 3. If you're in at 1.5, 250 to 3. Let's look at Decentraland. Let's see where this one is at. Everything has got pretty much the same looking. Decentraland, I would be in at 1.4. It's got a ways to go. 1.4, and I would be out not long after that, maybe at 220. 1.4 to 220. Again, that's a pretty good move if you're able to get a squeeze like that moving. Okay, let's see. We got through those. Okay. DCR. We haven't looked at DCR for a couple of weeks. Decred. Looking at Decred. Decred is a pretty terrible looking chart right now. Like many other assets, it's a terrible looking chart. I don't see any, right now this one is pretty nasty. Now there is a smaller trend line here. You could maybe take this one for a trade between 39, but probably overhead resistance is going to be so. I would let this one build a base first before I get into Decred. I don't think Decred is a very good candidate for a short-term trade right now. Okay, Avalanche. Let's see. Avalanche, I should have this one here. There we go. Avalanche has just gotten destroyed. So again, this one needs to base out. I would not try to pick the bottom on this one. You can tell the difference between something like Avalanche when it's setting up, it's consolidating, and then it just gets punked to the downside, right? This is a catch the falling knife trade. When it starts to base out and does things like this is when it's building up. And we saw a lot of these over the last couple of years. We saw a lot of these cup with handle type basing, and then they would explode higher into the November highs. So be patient on Avalanche. This one is not yet ready for your capital. All right, let's see, KDA versus Tether. I would say same comment here. This one is not yet basing. And if you guys are not sure when and how to get in, just put hike and ashy candles and look for the weekly chart to start throwing off hike and ashy candles. No shot right now. No shot. But as the weekly chart starts showing off these, like if we can do the same thing on any of these assets that we're looking at, like Leo, obviously 2 straight weeks of hike and ashy candles moving to the upside. That one looks pretty good. Here's Matic is just starting to show potential for this. So this is a great cheat. It's not perfect. It's not intended to, but it's it's a great tool if you don't know how to view price action like this. Okay, let's see, Algorand. And we'll just do a couple more here, guys. Algorand. All right. Algorand is terrible, terrible, terrible. Don't take this personally, right? This is not me slamming on your choice of asset. This is looking at the price chart saying that nobody wants it right now. So I would wait for this to base out. I don't even see this as a good trade right now until it's able to base out and set itself up for a nice explosion to the upside. Solana, let's look at Solana here. Okay, now this one's starting to show a little bit of interest. And even that is a little bit of a stretch. But I would say if this one is able to break out above and beyond, say 48 to 50, then this may be good for a trade up to about the 200-day moving average. So this is Solana. If you see a break above here, you may get a squeeze up into this area, and this is going to all come to a head somewhere between 90 to 100. And again, that's a hell of a move. I mean, that's a double if you're able to get that. So wait for it. Don't get in now. Wait for it. Let the price prove it to you that somebody's accumulating it. Next one is EWT, and this will be our last one for tonight. Earth, wind, and no, that's not right. Okay, EWT. I don't know what this asset is. Okay. Not really looking good, but starting to base out a little bit. I would say this one needs to clear 350, and then it will probably hit its head somewhere between 5 and 550 if it's able to get there. Again, this is not a prediction. This is more of if the price is able to clear this level, it may squeeze up into this area because it's cool to be short right now, right? Everybody wants to be short. And so if the price does get above 350, there's going to be a lot of shorts trying to get out. And guess what they have to do? They have to buy back their asset, which will help drive it higher. So this one is available for a trade above 350. I would close it out maybe by 5. Maybe by 5. Okay, last one here. We got a late entry, SNX. SNX versus Tether, and then we will let you guys go. Okay, so we had an aggressive buy over here, which failed. Like everything else. So this is a game of patience. This is what this is. Trading is not about all this, adrenaline and, yelling and pumping your fist at the screens and stuff like that. It's all a game of patience. And whoever has the most patience and allows the price to come to their setup is who wins with this. Now, the entry on this one would be about 375, 350 to 375. However, it's going to hit its head so close after that. I don't like this one for a trade because it just has very little reward to risk. But it may yet break, but I don't have a good sense for it being able to clear that area right off the bat. Oh, Energy Web Token. Okay, great. Okay, guys, that is it. We will bring you back to your regularly scheduled program here. Thank you, everybody, for your requests. I appreciate it. And, it's a game of patience, like I say. So have a plan for what you're going to do. Don't just jump into stuff. Never trade the news. Never trade the news because you're just trading along with the rest of the herd. So there's no way to get an edge. And remember, the more painful the bottom, the better the acceleration will be off of there. So it's okay if you have a long-term perspective that, hey, let's go ahead and make this really painful because we can shake out a lot of people. Then eventually, the eventual rip to the upside is going to be very, very worth it because you're going to be the only person on there. You and me and Mav and everybody else that's on this web. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Mav, you have any closing comments for today?
Yeah, just hang in there, like we talked about. It's going to be, it's going to be a tough year. There's no sugarcoating that, but stay solvent, stay sane, and stay rational. And I think you'll benefit as a result. Yeah, don't feed into anyone who's telling you that like tomorrow it's going to turn around. Because I mean, that'd be nice, but as we've seen, there's a lot of reasons why it won't. And we just need to embrace that, make a plan off of that. And, I think that will put us in a better position as a result. This is what we've been talking about throughout all of our services, Ready Set Trade, Ready Set Vision, and Ready Set Crypto, all of which you can access down below. I talked about it today in our Omnia newsletter about, what we're going to see from a data perspective, what's likely going to be the case as to when the market's going to turn around, what can we draw from historical data to kind of predict where things are going as best as possible. But obviously we live in unprecedented times. So, but yeah, I think it's something that if you just surround yourself with people who are acting in a more calm and measured sense, you'll be better off for it. And that's what we aim to, represent. And that's what this community is about. So as always, thank you so much for being a part of it. Thank you so much for listening. And until the next one, take care out there. Hope you're doing well. And we'll see you then. Cheers, everyone.
Hasta la vista, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you guys soon.